Here coming back at you, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different with this video. Now normally in the past I've been doing just like showing off comic books, but thing is I haven't really been buying comic books too much lately, and I don't really know what other direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a top 10 this time. It's going to be the top 10 wrestling autobiographies. As you can see, my cat Obi, he's already interested in knowing. He's trying to figure out what's going to be number one on there. See? He's very, very interested in my list here. Okay. Well, before we kick it off, I need to establish some of the rules, okay? First off, there's only going to be one author per entry. And what I mean by that is some wrestlers have multiple books. They have 2, 3, sometimes 4, or maybe even more books. But we're only going to count one book for each slot. Okay, so like for example, Booker T, he has 2 books, but well, neither one of those are on here. So, but only one of his books would be eligible. Okay, and secondly, it's a book that I have to have read. There might be books that are even better than some of these on that I'm going to be counting today, but if I haven't read them, I can't really judge them on how good they are. And thirdly, only autobiographies or biographies qualify. Only books that was written by an actual wrestler. For example, I have this book here, Wrestle Crap, the Very Worst of Pro Wrestling. It's a good book, it's a funny book, but it's not eligible because it wasn't written by an actual wrestler. Alright, so before we kick things off, we're going to do some honorable mentions. First off is Bobby the Brain. Secondly, Heartbreak and Triumph, the Shawn Michaels story, which this would be another example of the one entry per franchise, because Shawn Michaels, I think, has written another book on here, but only this one would be qualified. Okay. Second, In the Pit with Piper, good book. And next, To Be the Man by Ric Flair. Woo! Okay, so let's get off with the actual top 10. Alright, coming in at number 10, Walking a Golden Mile by William Regal. Now, this is a guy who got his start actually wrestling in carnivals. And the thing that I really liked about this book is he's like openly honest. He's very candid and very honest. And he deals with a lot of issues like with his past drug addiction and drug use, where he doesn't make any excuses and he doesn't blame anybody. He's like, I messed up, this is what I did, and it's a very detailing read. Number 9 is The Road Warriors by Joe Animal Laurinaitis. And if the name Laurinaitis sounds familiar, a little known fact, Joe Laurinaitis is actually the brother of John Laurinaitis, who you might, if you were a WWE fan like 5 years ago, you might recognize as People Power, the guy with the little frog voice like this. So, but I like this. It goes back to like talking about the Jim Herd days of WCW and their progression into the WWF, and then going back to the WCW. One of the things another story from this book is when Sid Vicious broke his leg, and he was trying to. Scott Steiner was kind of going crazy, and he's like, "Hey, wait a moment! Look at his leg. He broke his effing leg." So this is I recommend this book. Number 8 is Hulk Hogan, My Life Outside the Ring. Now Hulk Hogan actually wrote another book before that. Obi's a wrestling fan. Okay, Hulk Hogan wrote another book before this. It was this. I don't know if you can get this book, which is also a good book. But for the list, I'm actually going to go with this one, because because it deals with a lot of his stuff like outside of the wrestling business, like his divorce with Linda is covered, his car accident that his son Nick was involved in. And at one point, I think in the introduction of this book, it tells him about like how Hulk Hogan was actually contemplating suicide. He was like locked in his bathroom for 3 days, and he had like a gun to his mouth, and he was saying like he could feel the taste of the metallic in the gun, and he was holding his finger on the trigger, and the thoughts that was racing through his mind was just two ounces of pressure is all it would take, you know. And it was like very gripping and very, very real, very touching. Okay, what's number next? 7. The Stone Cold Truth by Steve Austin. And this, you know, if you were a fan of like the Attitude Era, you obviously must have loved Steve Austin. He was like on top of everything at the time. You know, Austin 316 shirts, and Austin Hell Yeah, what, you know. And a lot of good stories, including where one of the things I liked about this book, where he had gotten fired from WCW, and at the time he was mad about it. He was like upset, but in this book he actually says that Eric Bischoff made the right decision and it was something that he would have done. So I think that he comes very clean, very honest about that situation. And coming in at number 6, speaking of that, is Austin's good buddy, Eric Bischoff. Controversy creates cash. Now this is a good look at the inner workings of the inner turmoil of WCW at the time, like what was going on at the time, and the whole thing, like leading up to the WCW going under. And if this is a good perspective of that time. And if you like stories like this, another book that I highly recommend is called The Death of WCW, which I don't have right now, but if you look it up, that's a good read also. Okay, I need to change the pages on my notes here. Number 5, Cheating Death, Stealing Life, the Eddie Guerrero story. This was a book that I put off reading and put off getting for a long time, because when the time that this book first came out, I was like, Eddie Guerrero wrote a book, you know, that's something that you do like at the end of your career. You know, Eddie Guerrero, he's still got like, you know, a long span of like, he's still got many, many years in this business. You know, at the time I felt it was too soon. And then of course, like after this book was published, maybe I think not even a month later, Eddie Guerrero died. And you know, at the time I still put off reading this book because like it just made me sad to even think about it. You know, so I finally got around to reading it and picking up and reading it, and this is actually a good book. I recommend it for Eddie Guerrero fans. Yeah. Next one is number 4, The Hardcore Truth by Hardcore Holly. This is the book that actually inspired this video. I was at first going to make a book review of this book, and then I thought, you know what, I can do better. How about instead of a book review, I'll just do a top 10 list of my favorite wrestling books. And this actually checks in at number 4. And you know, this book, it goes into detail about, in the mid-90s, Shawn Michaels had like a little clique of wrestlers. Like it was him, Diesel, Kevin Nash, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, 1, 2, 3 Kid. You know, those 4, and like Triple H was like their little go-to guy. Like he was getting their bags and he basically sucking up to them and stuff. And the things that Holly writes about is like, you know, reading it, I had heard stories and rumors about like how bad it was at the time, but reading this, I didn't know it was actually that bad. You know, it's the point where now whenever I go back and watch some of the WWF programming from back in the day, and then I think about this book, it's like really sad, you know, about how the things were run at the time. And he also talks about stuff like the death of Owen Hart, and how he was at the arena that day, and like they were bringing him backstage and they were trying to revive him still, but how he saw his face and he knew he was gone. And it's a very detailed book. I recommend it. And let's see, number 3. Have a Nice Day by Mick Foley, Mankind. This was, I don't know if this was the first book ever to be written by a wrestler, but this was the first one to get like major attention. You know, everybody, I think this was even on the New York Times #1 bestseller list at the time of its release. In 1999, it was Christmas, and I had actually wanted this book for Christmas, and they were sold out everywhere. You could not get it anywhere. So, you know, Christmas came and I wasn't able to get it, and I was finally able to get it for my birthday, which is like the month after Christmas in January. And it was like very, and this book actually, me and my wife actually met Mick Foley last year. And if I can show you a picture here. Here he is right here. And this is the actual book in his hands. He signed it. See? So, oops. Fix the... Here. So yes, this is an actual signed copy of Mick Foley. And this... Yeah. And this book should actually be on the top 3 books of any wrestling fan. And let me see if I... And I think I covered... Oh yeah. And Mick Foley, he's also written other books. He's written Foley is Good, which I do not have a cover for. And 2 other books. He's written, I think, The Hardcore Diaries, and I think he wrote a TNA book. I'm not sure about that. Plus he wrote a couple of fiction books. And I believe a few kids' books as well. So, okay, number 2. A Lion's Tale by Chris Jericho. This book was very fun. It was a very fun read for me, and I really enjoyed this book. All through, like from beginning to end, you know, there was times that I laughed so hard I was almost in tears from this book. There's a funny story in here where he was with Jim Cornette and like a bunch of other wrestlers, and it was like late at night, and they were going through a drive-thru. I don't remember, it was either Burger King or Whataburger or somewhere. And he has an argument with the guy at the window, because like they had ordered like a bunch of burgers at the drive-thru, and then they came to the window, and the lady said, "Well, we haven't even started making the burgers yet." And Jim Cornette got like really mad. I was like, "You haven't even started on the burgers yet? You know, you have to watch. It's the video's on YouTube. I'll put a link to it later so you can check on the book, but it's like a really funny video. That book, this is his career in WCW covered, and for his WWF career he wrote 2 follow-up books. The Best in the World, well actually this is book number 3. Undisputed, How to Become the World Champion in 1,372 Easy Steps, and The Best in the World at What? I Have No Idea. So this is pretty much his WWF/WWE run right here, these 2 books. Okay, now then. And number one, actually let's do a recap before we get to it. Number 10 was Walking a Golden Mile by William Regal. Number 8 was The Road Warriors. Number 7 was My Life Outside of the Ring by Hulk Hogan. Number 6, The Stone Cold Truth. Number 5, Controversy Creates Cash. Was that number 5? That was number 6. This is number 5, Cheating Death, the Eddie Guerrero story. Number 4, The Hardcore Truth. Number 3, Have a Nice Day, Mankind, Mick Foley. Number 2, A Lion's Tale. I think I messed up somewhere in the countings, but it's all there. Trust me, it's all there. Okay, number 1 is The Hitman by Bret Hart. I remember I was like so excited about this book that whenever I first heard about this book, actually it had not been released in America. I ordered it direct from Canada, and they shipped it over here. So it was released in Canada like a month or maybe 2 months before its American release. And I was so excited to read it, I actually ordered it from Canada. And it came in, and the book was damaged, actually, whenever it came in. If I could take the cover off here. If you could see, like, the book here, the back end was damaged, and this cover here was all messed up. And you can even see the cover here. But at the time, I didn't even mind it because I just wanted to read it. And actually it turned out to be the best book. Back when I first started getting into wrestling, like the mid-90s, Bret Hart was the man. He was like the champion in the WWF. And my favorite wrestler at the time was Razor Ramon, but Bret Hart was on top. And it's very interesting going into detail, like his early days, his growing up with, I think it was like 8 or 9 brothers and sisters. He had like a very large family, and they were so poor, like they couldn't afford decent clothes. And you know how another thing I remember, when he came to the WWF, they wanted him to be Cowboy Bret Hart, and they wanted him to have like a cowboy hat and spurs and a lasso. And then he went up to him and was like, you know, this is not me. You know, this isn't who I am. Of course, like the Montreal incident and his brother's death and all that's included here. So this is a very in-depth and thorough review of his career, and it even shows this picture that he actually drew of the wrestlers here. But yeah, if you have to read just one of these books, this is the one that I actually recommend the most, is the Hitman book. And whoa, okay, let's kind of make these into 2 piles now because they're tipping over. Okay, so that about does it for the top 10. So and a follow-up, what did you guys think? Put it in the comments. What would you like to see more out of this channel? I could do, what do you think the follow-up, the future of this channel should be? Would you like more top 10 reviews? Would you like book reviews? Maybe food reviews? I could even do movie reviews. I recently saw the movie Ant-Man and Terminator Genesis. I could do reviews on them. Leave it in the comments. You know, let me know whatever you want, and whatever, because I can't always do comic book videos. So take care, and hope to hear from you soon.